All right, so we can go ahead and get started. Right, so just a little introduction of me before we go ahead and start talking about parenting styles. So my name is Lauren. I am the family support specialist with Childcare Answers. So in my role at Childcare Answers, I provide parenting training and parenting support, either through webinars, online tools and resources, or one-on-one engagement with families. So that can be via email, via the phone, or via Zoom meetings. So if you want to meet face-to-face and kind of chat things out. My specialty is in infants and toddlers and then children with special needs, but really birth to the beginning of school age, I can support you in any of your parenting needs, from breastfeeding to biting to potty training to challenging behaviors. So just let me know if you need support in any of those areas or if you want to connect. All of those resources are free. So they are available to you at no cost, which is really nice as well. And then I also help parents connect to childcare programs. So if you're looking for childcare, preschool program, maybe a school-based program, e-learning supports, I can connect you, gather a little bit of information, and provide you a list of programs that may meet your family's needs. So that's a little bit about what I do. I also have two kiddos. I have a 3-year-old daughter and a 7-year-old son. The 3-year-old is at childcare right now, but the 7-year-old is banished to his room currently with the Nintendo Switch while I'm presenting. So he is home doing e-learning, and after today's announcement, will likely be home longer than anticipated. So we roll with the punches. And as I'm talking and sharing about parenting styles, I am sure I will share stories of my own parenting journey and my kiddos, their needs, and maybe the ways that I parent differently depending on my two children. So in addition to doing webinars and being on our website, we are also very active on social media. That may be how you found out about today's session. So follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We also have a pretty active YouTube channel where we post all of our recorded webinars as well as some videos on there as well. And then our website, if you go to childcareanswers.com/yourchild, there are tons and tons of parenting resources on there that you can download or that you can look at. And we're always adding to those. So if there's a specific resource that you're in need of as a parent, but it's not there, let us know, and we can find those resources or create a tool for you. Childcare Answers is also part of a larger statewide network of childcare resource and referral agencies. We are located in Central Indy, servicing Marion, Hamilton, and Hendricks, but there is an agency that services you if you are not from those 3 counties. That doesn't necessarily mean that you can't connect with me. Certainly email me, message me, fill out our family info form. But if you're in need of further support, I can always connect you to the right person. All right, so let's get into the content of looking at parenting styles. So as we begin this conversation about parenting styles, I think it's important to recognize that the path to becoming a better parent, like every road in personal growth and mastery, really begins with self-examination. So all of us as parents are always wanting to strive for the best. There's always area to grow, regardless of what we know about young children in our own parenting journey. There's always room for growth. So I think as part of that growth, the first thing we need to do is really self-examine. So where am I at and where would I like to go from here? What are my strengths and then what are those areas that I would like to work on? So part of talking about parenting styles is really recognizing our strengths in parenting and then also those areas that we would love to improve. So as I talk about parenting styles, I really want to just provide information and not judgment. So I do not want to say necessarily that one parenting style is better than another parenting style, but really just provide information so that you can self-examine and say, this is where I'm at. This is why I parent this way. And yes, I'm happy with that. Or no, I'm not happy with that. And these are the parts that I am okay with. And these are the parts that I would like to change. So that is completely a personal journey for all of us as we navigate the world of parenting. Additionally, coming from the notion that 99% of parents want what's best for their child. And is that a legit statistic? No. But I really have never met a parent, even in the darkest of times, that didn't want what's best for their child. So I think as we're sharing stories and we're asking questions and we're reflecting to really come at it from the place of we all want what's best. We all want to be the best parent. We all just are approaching parenting from a different lens or a different set of experiences. Additionally, parenting is hard. It is impossible to be at 100% every single day. And I think that COVID has really shown us that, right? So, on those tough days when you're really questioning yourself, when you've lost your mind, just really recognize that parenting is hard. You're doing a great job. Perfect parents don't exist and perfect children don't exist. So raising a little human takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of energy out of us as parents, and it takes a lot of work. So just showing up for today's session is amazing. And really that step towards recognizing like I'm not perfect and I'm okay not being perfect, but that doesn't mean that I don't have areas where I could grow or strengthen myself as a parent. So as we look at parenting styles, and we're going to look at the 4 classic parenting styles, and then the 3 more modern parenting styles, which are basically kind of a subsection of the 4 traditional parenting styles. There are a lot of influences that go into the way that we parent and the style in which we parent. Some of those being our own parents' parenting style, so the way that we were parented. Whether we decide I do not want to parent like my parents and we make a huge shift, or we continue those same patterns because that's what we know or it worked or we like that kind of parenting style. But our own parents' parenting style definitely affects the way that we choose to parent our children, our family structure. So sometimes the structure in which our family is set up either allows us to make choices when it comes to parenting or basically influences the way that we parent. So having multiple parents in the household definitely changes things instead of, a single parent just getting by the best that they possibly can. A divorced family structure, a family structure with multiple parents, so step parents, bonus parents, those types of things. And a lot of that is because of the cultural stigma that comes with those as well. Additionally, ethnic background plays a role in our parenting. A lot of this is because of the way that our parents grew up as well, but also we have kind of these norms within our own culture that come to play within parenting, as well as our individual parenting skills and knowledge. So what am I bringing to the table? So me with a master's in early childhood is definitely bringing a certain set of skills to parenting that my husband, who is in IT, does not have. And that's not a bad thing. It doesn't mean that I'm a better parent than he is by any means. It just says that we all are coming from a different angle when it comes to parenting with our own set of skills and knowledge. Child's temperament comes into play as well. So the way that children respond, those personality traits, kind of the way that a child was born, that inner like who that person is, as well as our own temperament. Sometimes we have temperaments that mesh really well together, and sometimes we have temperaments that really clash. And then outside stressors and influencers. So society, socioeconomic status, COVID, work-life balance, all of these types of things all affect our parenting style. And it can affect it on a daily basis, not overall, but the way that we parent every single day. So as we dissect these parenting styles, we're going to see differences in these parenting styles based on basically 4 different areas. So number 1 being nurturance. So the way that parents show love and nurturance, their discipline style, the communication methods in which the parents communicate, but also the way that they accept communication from their child, and then those expectations for themselves, for their children, for their children's behaviors. What are those expectations that a parent might place on a child? So in the 60s, Baumrin did some research on parenting styles and identified 4 types of parenting, basically saying that parents are going to fall within these 4 kind of larger parenting styles. Every parent is going to vary, but there's a lot of characteristics that parents have that allows them to kind of be lumped into these 4 parenting styles. Additionally, we have the 3 current or modern parenting styles that are basically kind of the extreme of those 4. So an extreme, not necessarily, again, in a bad way, it just means that they may be higher on one end of the spectrum than on the others. And so as we're looking at these spectrums, they really range on this scale of demanding to undemanding, warm and accepting to cold and unaccepting. So these are the 4 parenting styles on these kind of ranges. So authoritative has that balance between warm and accepting and demanding. Authoritarian, which I know are very similar, and so it's hard to keep them apart. It is high on demanding, but also high on cold and accepting. A permissive family is warm and accepting, but also the demands are low. And then uninvolved is both undemanding and then cold and unaccepting. So you can see how these all kind of fall in a range. And then the 3 modern styles that I'll talk about in a minute as well kind of fall in these ranges, but are higher on one side and lower on the other, less balanced than these 4. And so our modern parenting styles, the picture definitely gives away one of them, is the attachment parenting, the free range parent, and then the helicopter parent. So let's dive kind of deep into these styles. So we're going to look at all 7 styles and look at their scale from nurturance, discipline, communication, and expectations. And then really kind of get this bigger picture of who this parent is, what that parent believes in, what that parent's message is. So the authoritative parent is the emotion coach. Their nurturance style is about validating children's feelings and emotions. They're generous with positive feedback. Feelings and love are very, very high of importance in the authoritative parent. Their discipline style is consistent rules and boundaries. They set those limits, and those limits are very clear, but there's always a reason behind the rule. So that reason is always explained. So it's not kind of this limit of I just told you so, but a limit of it's not okay to do this because of X, Y, and Z. As you can imagine, then from that, discipline style translates to open communication back and forth between the parent and the child. These parents are listening to the child for input, and there's frequent and appropriate levels of understanding. So we want to understand our child, and we want our child to understand us. Is kind of that mentality of the authoritative parent when it comes to communication. And then from an expectation standpoint, because these parents are high on warmth and love, but also high on demand, the expectations are high, goals are high for their child, but they're stated clearly, and the child knows what to expect, as well as the child may have input into their goals or expectations. The pros of this parenting style is that children raised in this type of household have higher mental health scores, meaning that they have pretty positive mental health and self-esteem, and they're less likely to have problems with substance abuse, engage in unhealthy sexual behaviors, and to be violent. The cons of this parenting style are that it requires a lot of patience and effort from the parent. Most experts agree that children raised in the authoritative parenting style produce the healthiest outcomes. However, it is very hard to be an authoritative parent 24/7. It requires a lot of patience and a lot of effort to make sure that everyone is heard and everyone is validated. The mantra of the authoritative parent is really this back and forth communication. I talk, you listen, you talk, and then I listen to you, which translates to children that trust their feelings. They're able to really regulate their own emotions and solve their own problems. They have high rates of self esteem. They do well in a school based setting. They do well learning, and they really get along with other people. So, children again, from this parenting style, have pretty great outcomes when it comes to emotional regulation and getting along with other people. So this parenting style is also labeled the emotion coach. So some common phrases that you may hear from this kind of parent or an emotion coach is, it's okay to be upset. It's good to let it out. So really validating those feelings and allowing for crying, allowing for emotional expression. I hear you. I'm here for you. I'll stay with you. So during a tantrum or an outburst, or when a child is really struggling, you may hear that parent saying, like, I'm here for you. I'm not going to leave you. I'm not going to walk away. I'm going to stay until you feel better. You also might hear them saying, it's okay to feel the way you feel, but it's not okay to do X, Y, and Z. So this is when those firm limits and expectations come into play. You can feel all of those feelings. It's okay to be mad. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to be excited. However, the behavior you're exhibiting because of those feelings is not acceptable. So it's okay to feel mad. It's not okay to hit me. So that is where you might see the emotion coach playing to the emotions, but also setting a limit when it comes to behavior. And then another phrase that you might hear very commonly from an emotion coach is, let's take a breath, take a break, sit down for a moment. So allowing that child to emotionally regulate while also helping that child emotionally regulate, typically alongside of the child. I'm going to take a breath while you take a breath. And that is why a lot of this takes a lot of patience and presence on behalf of the adult. Is in order to do this, you have to have the time and energy and able to emotion coach. So as we look at these parenting styles on that scale, we have the authoritarian parent, who is also high on demanding, but does not have the high warmth that the authoritative parent has. So the authoritarian, when it comes to nurturance, looks really at punishing rather than disciplining. So it's all about, I set the rules and that is the rule and that is it. And if you don't do what has been asked of you, there will be a punishment. Children's opinions are not taken into consideration. So the warmth aspect of this is low. Their discipline style is very strict when it comes to rules and expectations. And the focus is really on obedience, not about understanding like the authoritative parent, but of really focusing on, you're just going to do what I said because that's what I told you to do. Communication style is that open communication really isn't accepted or encouraged. It is, again, a do as I say, and that is it. I don't need any feedback from you. We're good here. And then the expectations are very high, just like the authoritative parent. The high expectations, and they expect their child to meet those expectations. Oftentimes in this parenting style, that parent also has high expectations for themselves and for others. So the pros of the authoritarian parent is that there are firm, consistent boundaries. So children know exactly what's going to be expected of them, and those boundaries are reinforced every single time. So there's no kind of push of the boundaries. Today, if it's not okay for me to do this, tomorrow it also won't be okay for me to do this. And research really shows us that children do well when there are firm and consistent boundaries. They don't have to push the needle as much because they know where those boundaries lie. Additionally, in this parenting style, we find that children comply, but only when they're being watched. So I'm going to do what you tell me to do when you see me, but when you're not watching, I'm going to do whatever I want. And that is really out of the focus of avoiding punishment or avoiding a consequence. The cons of this is that they actually don't see their parents as legitimate authority figures. So the whole idea of this parenting style is to see the adult as authoritative. I am in charge. You are the child. I am the adult. But the actual con of this parenting style is that children don't see their parent as a legitimate authority figure. And that is because when the parent is not watching, the child doesn't see rules as something that they have to follow. Rules are only something that I have to follow when I am being watched by someone who knows the rules. So at school, I might push back because I'm trying to figure out, are your rules the same as my parents? At grandma's house, that sort of thing. They're also more likely to rebel or engage in delinquent behaviors. Again, because no one's watching, they're going to start pushing back. They may become very good liars to avoid punishment, and they may lack the ability to express their feelings and emotions verbally. Because communication isn't a strong suit of this parenting style, there's not a lot of conversations about feelings and emotions. This is definitely the parenting style that I grew up in, and I can definitely relate to some of these things. About not being able to share feelings and emotions. That was something I still work on as an adult. And I am really good when someone's watching me. And then, when you go off to college, you make a lot of mistakes because no one's there forcing you to do X, Y, and Z. The child in this parenting style doesn't learn right from wrong. They just learn what I have to do in order to not have a consequence. The mantra of the authoritarian parent is because I said so. That is kind of, that common phrase I heard quite often as a child, and I'm sure a lot of us can relate to that as well. When you ask, but why? Because I said so. And I hate myself when I hear that come out of my mouth, because I so very much want to support my children's emotional development in an area that I was lacking as a child. But a lot of these things are very much ingrained in who we are. And I want them to do what I told them to do. So then I go back to that because I said so. And then on the other hand, I'm like, okay, well, this is actually why I need you to do this because it's going to keep your body safe. Children in this style learn that their feelings are wrong, inappropriate, or not valid. So very much that, phrase of there's no crying in baseball, or I'll give you something to cry about, that your crying is not valid and you shouldn't be crying, and it's not okay to express your feelings and emotions. They may have a difficult time regulating themselves because of that, because they're not really sure what to do with all of those feelings. And again, they learn how to act when someone's watching in order to avoid consequences or punishment, and not because they learn that it's the right thing to do. So this parenting style definitely focuses on doing the right thing, but the way that they approach different things may lead to outcomes that they weren't necessarily hoping to achieve by being that type of parent. So the permissive parent, also known as the laissez-faire parent, is high on warmth and love, but low on demand. So the nurturant style is very loving, warm, forgiving. There's a lot of love there. The discipline style, however, is very low limits, very low boundaries. There's not a lot of control. The kids are kind of doing what they want. These are the households that you might say like, oh, the children are in charge in that house. And I really think in every household, to some extent, the children are in charge. But not every day, but definitely sometimes. And that was shown in our house during COVID. But there's a lot of limits limit differences in this parenting style than there is in the authoritative and the authoritarian. Communication style is again where we see that nurturance, that warmth, that I'm going to listen to your input. I care what you have to say. I'm going to encourage open communication. You can tell me anything, almost acting as that friend. And then when you look at expectations, there are very few rules. Children kind of make their own decisions. They set their own rules, and the expectations are very lenient. So the pros of this parenting style is, again, that it's very high on love and nurturance. So children are given a lot of love. Attachment is high in this parenting style. And the effects through research has shown that a lot of children raised in this parenting style have said, like, I am really independent decision-making adult. I can really make a lot of my own decisions, and I value that as an adult. And that comes from my parenting style. The cons are, while all kids get into trouble to some extent, some kids under this parenting style may get into more trouble because that watching eye is just not there as much. Additionally, because this parenting style is a little bit more permissive, children may eventually develop obesity, cavities, other health problems because eating healthy, brushing teeth, things like that aren't pushed on these children, and there's a lot more freedom in expectations. Additionally, research has shown that children in the permissive parenting style may be victims to bullies more often. The authoritarians, the last parenting style, there are higher rates of them being bullies. This parenting style, they are more likely to be victims of bullies, and they're more likely to struggle academically. And they think that some of that may just be that there isn't that parent pushing them at home or keeping up on their schoolwork. So the mantra of the permissive parenting is really that kids will be kids. They're going to do what they need to do. That's just how kids act. And the effects on this style is that they may not learn how to regulate their emotions because there's no one there kind of helping them work through those emotions, which may lead to impulsive, egocentric behavior and poor social skills. They don't really know how to kind of get along with other people because they've kind of just done them by themselves. However, they often praise their upbringing and credit it with developing themselves into independent decision-making adults. So if they get through childhood, they really credit themselves to, like, I am a lot more independent than some of my peers. And then you have the last of the four traditional parenting styles, which is the uninvolved parent. So this is the dismissing parent. This is the parent who is low on demand, but also low on warmth. So this parent can act very dismissingly. They only attend to basic emotional needs and don't really go deeper into that. They lack a lot of responsiveness. So they're not responding to their child in a way that other parenting styles might respond. Their discipline style is high on physical punishment while having few rules. As far as communication goes, because they're only attending to basic emotional needs, communication isn't of value in this parenting style, or they don't have time for communication. They're not asking questions about their day. They're not showing interest in that day-to-day life. It's really just kind of surface level basic emotional needs. And then with expectations, there just rarely aren't any. They rarely even know where their child is or what their child is doing, and they kind of expect their child to raise themselves. This parenting style has really been associated with pretty poor outcomes, the poorest of all of the four parenting styles. So there really are no documented upsides. However, children who were raised in this type of household grow up to be adults that are very resilient, because they've kind of had to fend for themselves emotionally, but also physically. Where the permissive style, they're really only taking care of themselves physically. Their emotional needs are met, and the uninvolved parenting styles, both the physical and emotional needs, are not met. The cons are that they have trouble controlling their emotions. They're also more likely to be depressed, struggle in academics. They really struggle with social relationships. They're antisocial and they're very anxious. And again, this stems from the fact that no one has really been there for them and they're doing everything on their own. And so they're not learning these skills as children. However, I think it's also important to say that the uninvolved parent isn't parenting this way because they choose to be an uninvolved parent. Where the other three parenting styles is a choice, I have decided that this is how I want to raise my children. The uninvolved parenting style, it is not a conscious choice. These parents typically have circumstances that prevent them from bonding with their child, whether it is a single mom working 5 jobs and they're just not there because they can't be, to a parent with substance abuse disorder, to a parent who had a very uninvolved parent due to substance abuse or things like that. And so they don't know how to do that with their child. There are all oftentimes extenuating circumstances that lead to this parenting style. So this parenting style, again, is not necessarily a conscious choice. It is because they don't have the skills to not parent this way, or they are kind of forced into parenting this way. This parenting style is often seen as neglectful, and does lead to family situations, like DCS getting involved and things like that. The effects of this style are that children are very impulsive, they have difficulty with self-regulation, they are more likely to encounter delinquency and addiction problems, and they're also at an increased risk of mental health disorders, likely stemming from genetics and from environment. They've seen their parents suffer from these same things, and then they begin to exhibit those similar behaviors. So this parenting style goes beyond that parent working from home during COVID and their kid is crying, like in this picture. It really, it goes well beyond that. So this is the only parenting style that we'll talk about that really is a negative parenting style. So now we'll look at the 3 modern parenting styles. And after learning about those 4 parenting styles, you're going to see, oh, this is how this parenting style fits into this one, right? So the helicopter parent is very high on nurturance, in a way that they control many of their child's situations, all out of love. They want what's best for their child. And they may limit independence because they just want their child to be successful so badly. They're also constantly offering guidance, oftentimes inserting themselves in things that they probably even don't need to be, but they're just wanting to jump in and solve their child's problems because they don't want to see them struggle. They overly communicate to their child. So there's a lot of communication, sometimes leading in the child going, oh, mom, because they're just like, stop communicating with me. I've heard it enough. Please stop. I've definitely heard that phrase come out of my 7-year-old probably today. Oh, mom, just leave me alone. And then they're very information seeking. So asking a lot of questions. Tell me this, tell me this. Who are you with? What were you doing? Blah, 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 blah. To the point where they're, again, overly communicating. And then they push their parental desires on their children. So they want them to be successful adults. So they're going to kind of push those own parental desires on their children. And then as far as expectations go, they really don't have very high expectations for their children because they really lack confidence that their child can handle situations skillfully, just like an adult would, which may be fair. However, they don't provide them that opportunity to solve problems, which then kind of fuels this desire or this thinking that my child is unable to handle things on their own. So keep in mind when it comes to the helicopter parent, that they're approaching all four of those different areas out of love and concern. Like, this parent really wants what's best for their child, and they don't want their child's mistakes as a child to affect their future. So they're going to hover and jump in and step in because they just want them to be successful so badly, and they want them to be good humans. And it's definitely coming from love. So the nurturance and warmth end of the spectrum is super high, but also the demanding side of things is also super high. So it goes kind of the extreme of the authoritative parent. So the pros of the helicopter parent is they found through research that college students whose parents are helicopter parents and are monitoring their behaviors are less likely to drink heavily, take sexual risks, and hang out with people who drink heavily, which is definitely a pro. And then on the cons, children lack self-confidence and self-esteem, mainly because their decisions are constantly questioned and they're never able to make minor mistakes and learn from those mistakes. Additionally, reporting higher levels of anxiety and depression as adults. They have this fear of failure, and they're poor problem solvers, all kind of stemming from that same thing, right? So many times parents who are seen as helicopter parents don't necessarily see themselves as helicopter parents, but what their real true vision of being a parent is that they want to be authoritarian. They want to be a parent who is high on warmth and high on demanding, but not too high on either side. So as we're encouraging these parents, or maybe there's things that you're reading in here going, oh, that's me. I want you to think about how you move from helicopter to authoritarian. And it's very easy to get helicoptery, if that is a word. So as we're looking at moving from helicopter parent to authoritarian, it's supporting our children's growth and independence. So allowing them to be able to do things on their own. And I know it's hard. It is so hard from a parent perspective, A, because we don't want them to fail, B, because it just takes a lot longer when they do it themselves, and then C, it's easier to just do it ourselves. But it's important as we are supporting our child's growth and development that we're allowing them to be independent, of really refraining from doing everything for our children. So it's allowing them to kind of take the lead and do some things on their own. That may lead to milk getting spilled all over the kitchen as they're pouring themselves a cup of milk, but we're teaching them the skills for them to be able to start doing things on their own. It may take 10 extra minutes to leave the door as they're putting on their own jacket and zipping it up. But those skills that we're teaching them are really important for lifelong learning. We also really want to look at not helping children escape consequences, because when we have a consequence, we learn that if I do X, Y is going to happen, which then prevents poor behavior from happening again. If children never have to experience their consequences, then there is no real reason to not engage in that behavior again. We also want to encourage children to solve their own problems. So this is an area where I think I excel as a parent, where is really helping them solve their own problems. And that likely stems from my background with a master's in early childhood, is I understand problem solving. So it's using language like, you're going to need to work that out yourselves, or tell him, it's my turn, you need to give that back, or tell him I was playing with that. Instead of doing it on behalf of the child, it's giving the child the work so that they can do it themselves. Even as simple as having your child order their own meal when you go out to dinner instead of ordering for them, it allows them to kind of make this voice for themselves to solve their own problems. But there are a lot of times that I tell my kids, like, I can't solve this problem for you. You're going to have to figure it out. I can help you, but I'm not always going to be here. And that's true for navigating a play structure to navigating peer relationships to just ordering a meal out at a restaurant. And that kind of goes into the teaching your children to speak up for themselves. My son does karate, and one of the things that they learn in karate is to use your voice. Your voice is your most powerful part of your body, not your physical being, but your voice. So if you're being bullied, you don't punch the bully. You say, hey, back off. And you use this really strong voice that sends the message like, I'm not someone to mess with here. And so that is another way that we can empower children, is by giving them a voice to speak up for themselves and power behind their voice. And that is as simple as teaching a 1-year-old the word no. So when someone takes their toy, they can say no instead of biting their friend. And then understanding and accepting your child's weaknesses and strengths. It is so easy to recognize our child's strengths. And we recognize their weaknesses, but we don't like to point them out. But when we understand and accept weaknesses, it gives us the ability to provide skills to help them reach those skills that aren't there yet. And so I think that that is part of moving from a helicopter parent to authoritarian, is that I'm recognizing that you have a weakness and I understand that weakness, and I'm going to empower you to move past that weakness rather than me helping you move past that weakness. I can't do that for you. So that is the only parenting style that I'm going to give kind of steps on moving past that parenting style. And that is truly because it's coming from the place of love and warmth, and I want you to be so successful. But if I do a few other things, if I move out of the helicopter and into authoritarian, I am actually setting you up to be successful. So that is what's really cool about that parenting style, is there are things that I can self-reflect in me that really help my child be the most successful adult that they can possibly be. Next is the attachment parenting style. So attachment parenting style is also very high on love and nurturance. It is kind of in the middle when it comes to demand. So I wouldn't say that the attachment style is high on demand or low on demand. I would say that it's kind of right in the middle, but very high on the range of nurturance. So they really believe in nurturing touch, of holding their baby and never putting them down and giving them that love and security physically. And their focus is really on this parent-child bond through respect and security. So this parenting style goes back to attachment parenting, from the perspective of the way that children form attachments with caregivers. So secure attachment versus insecure attachment. So it goes off of those beliefs from Bowlby and those other scientists and researchers that show that through meeting children's emotional and physical needs, we're building a secure attachment with our child. Their discipline style is all about labeling feelings and emotions, being sensitive, responding very sensitively. So this is the parent. You see a lot of attachment parenting with babies, is the baby cries and the parent immediately responds. That doesn't necessarily mean that that parent automatically swoops in and picks the baby up, but it's responding to say, I hear you crying. You're telling me that you're hungry. Your bottle is coming. I would say that I was very much an attachment parent to my babies. And then I morphed out of attachment parenting out after the toddler years. So this parenting style can definitely morph depending on the age of our child. I was also an infant teacher, so I would say that I was high in this area as an infant teacher as well. And their discipline style is really all about distract, redirect, and guide. Like, we're going to focus on something else, we're going to move along, and then I'm just going to guide you into something more positive. So you're climbing on the couch, instead of saying our feet go on the floor, you need to get your body off the couch, which is something that you might hear the authoritarian parents say. In this, it may just be gently taking them off, setting them on the ground, and then just going and finding something else to play with, never really addressing the fact that you're climbing on the couch, just moving them somewhere else. Communication in this parenting style is about listening and responding very sensitively to the child, really talking to them in a calm, caring voice. I hear you. I know that you're sad. with that warmth and nurturing very high, kind of then represented through language. They also encourage self-expression, including emotions. So like, you feel all the feels, girlfriend, you live your life, you go do you paint on that wall, like you do what you need to do to express yourself. And then expectations are that the adult creates an environment that sends the message of safety and security. So instead of setting limits in the environment, the adult removes anything that may create a limit setting problem. So I'm going to move the chair away from the counter to prevent you from climbing on it in the first place. I'm going to place the pots and pans that I don't care that you mess with down low, and I'm going to move the glass bowls up high in the kitchen. I'm going to put a lock on the door that I don't want you in. So really creating a message that says, like, this is your space. You can explore safely here because everything in this space is for you. With the attachment parenting, from Dr. Sears, who was high in attachment parenting, he developed the 7 baby B's of attachment parenting, or kind of the 7 philosophies of parenting. So number 1 is birth bonding. So the attachment parent is very attached when baby is in utero, of talking and reading to baby, of listening to music. There's a lot of birth bonding. You might see delayed cord clamping at birth, a lot of skin to skin, breast crawl, leading to a baby who is breastfed. Also, you'll see a lot of baby wearing with attachment parenting, basically like coming from that notion of physical touch. Like, physical touch is the way that I tell you you're safe. So wearing you close to me promotes physical touch and closeness. They're also going to have the baby close to them during sleep. So bedding close to baby, whether that is room sharing or bed sharing. They also believe in the language value of their baby's cry and responding very promptly, and that every cry is communicating a different message. They are very much aware and fearful of baby trainers, and these are things like swings, bouncy seats, pacifiers, all types of things that may soothe their baby other than them soothing their baby. And then they also, with all of this being said, really promote balance between your own mental health as a parent, but also nurturing and caring for your child, because it can get very overwhelming to provide an attachment parenting style. So the pros of attachment parenting is that children exposed to attachment parents are independent, resilient, they're less stressed, they're empathetic, and they're able to control their emotions. So I think that there is a lot of mixed messages out in the media about attachment parenting, creating children who are like latchkey children, or that they need to be close to their parent forever. They're going to nurse until they're 15, like those types of things. But research really shows that when there's a solid foundation of trust at the very, very beginning, that those kids actually develop to be more independent or resilient children and adults because they trust themselves. And so those kind of there's a lot of misconceptions around the pros of this parenting style. The cons are that this parenting style can be very all-consuming. So it can kind of take over all other relationships, and then the parent relationship together can kind of get pushed to the wayside. Friendship relationships can get pushed to the wayside. That, like, it is really all focused on the children, which can get very unhealthy very quickly, which is why one of the 7 B's is balance, because it recognizes that this can happen. And then additionally, a con of this parenting style is that co-sleeping is a big proponent and included in this, and that co-sleeping puts babies at risk for SIDS and suffocation, and it's really not recommended. So promoting room sharing versus co-sleeping or bed sharing. And then lastly, we have the free range parent. So the free range parent is again high on love and nurturance, and low on discipline. So very similar to permissive parenting style, but high on nurturance. So higher on the nurturance scale, than even the permissive parent. So they provide their child the independence, responsibility, and freedom and control to kind of be who they are. There are clear rules and consequences before the loose reins. So that is where it is different from the permissive parenting style, as that the demand is higher. So it's not like a Lord of the Flies situations. It's here are the rules. Now go be free. You can roam the neighborhood, but you don't go in the street. Or you can do X, Y, and Z, but you don't do A, B, and C. It really promotes two-way communication back and forth between the parent and the child, while also providing room for children to take risks, which definitely has its advantages. When children are able to take risks, they learn what their body is capable of, and they learn to trust themselves. Very similar in the trust that's established in the attachment parenting style, but just approached from a different angle. So the free range parenting style resembles the uninvolved style a lot, and the permissive style. However, this is a conscious decision. So it really allows for more independent thinking that is in the best interest of the child. So the child's interests are thought of first and foremost. And the mantra of this parenting style is really, the more risks you allow children to take, the better they learn to take care of themselves. So through taking risks, and safe risks, they are learning what they can and cannot do, and they're learning to become independent people, who can take care of themselves. So the pros is that giving kids control and responsibility really helps them grow less depressed, less anxious, more able to make their own decisions, and they're self-reliant. While the cons are, while the risk is small, children can get hurt when unsupervised. So that is definitely an area of concern, which then also leads to in some states, free range parents can be charged with neglect because they don't understand the difference between the uninvolved and the free range parent. Where the uninvolved parent has no idea what their child is doing, the free range parent knows that their child's roaming the neighborhood, but within a set of rules and limits, before they were able to go out and explore on their own. While parents have been charged with neglect from this parenting style, nothing ever has been substantiated. So it's, once people understand it, then kind of the charges are dropped. So as we kind of wrap up, and some of this has been heavy to really think about, wow, this is the type of parent I am, and I don't want to be that parent, or wow, this is the parent I want to be. I am doing this right, and anywhere in between. I know that there are times that I'm pulling from every different parenting style, and it's not always because I want to be pulling from every parenting style. There's a lot of stressors that come with being a parent. And when we're under stress, we tend to resort to what we know or how we were raised, whether we support that parenting style or not. So I just threw a couple funnies in here so that we can laugh, because parenting is hard and sometimes we need to laugh at ourselves. So the first one, okay, it's bedtime, guys. Raise your hand if you're still alive. 1, 2, boom, 2 out of 2. Sometimes if we have both kids at the end of the day, like, that is a success. The one in the middle is that choice between parenting style and my child's temperament. I want to be this parent, but my child's really pushing my buttons and it's really forcing me to be this kind of parent. And I think we can all relate to that. And then another funny one to joke on the 4 parenting styles is the 5 parenting styles. The authoritarian, do as I say. The authoritative, hey kiddo, do as I say, okay? The permissive is whatever you say. The uninvolved. And then the evil cyborg, misbehavior alert, destroy child. So just to give you kind of a little funny as we wrap things up. So our takeaways are really that our children are unique, and we know them best. So parenting is going to be unique as well. And the style that I might adapt for one child may look a little bit different for another child. Research suggests that children have the healthiest outcomes when we balance nurturance and guidance and limit setting. So when we have a balance, regardless of what parenting style we choose, if we have nurturance and love, but also limits and guidance, however that may look for our family, it does lead to the healthiest of outcomes. And at the end of the day, we're all just making the best decisions we can. And we're kind of flying by the seat of our pants as parents. So we do it out of love. We might change things as we learn things, but really we're just trying to make the best decisions today to provide the best outcomes for tomorrow. So sometimes we're just kind of rolling with it, and that's okay too. So as we kind of wrap things up, I will pull up our resources at the end, and this is something that you can look at later as well. But just kind of if you're wanting to read more about this, there's a ton of research out on the internet. But I will start with just leaving our contact information, our link to our family info form, and then my email address. If you're trying to decide between two parenting styles, or if you're parenting with somebody else that has a different parenting style, or caregiving style. So if your caregiving style is very different than maybe your child's teacher's caregiving style is, that I can provide kind of one-on-one consultations, whether that is just sending you resources via email, we can meet and chat via Zoom, or I have our Child Care Answers has a contact for a therapist who specializes in kind of parenting styles and that sort of thing, that we can always connect you to talk to. He ran a series for us of webinars this summer on parenting during COVID. So he is a fantastic resource to kind of hit home on kind of differences in working through parenting styles and communication. Feel free to always email me at laureng@childcareanswers.com. Thank you guys.